In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to create this line chart using D3 and React. Now, D3 is a data visualization library, and on their site they say D3 is a JavaScript library for manipulating documents based on data. D3 helps you to bring data to life using HTML, SVG, and CSS. So basically, D3 is much more than just a basic charting library. It has components and features that allow you to do advanced graphics and animation. As you can see here, you can use it to do shape animation, in other words, shape tweening between two shapes, or manipulate drawings like this. And also, you can do transforms and transitions like this. As you can see, it's doing this transform transition as I hover over all these squares. There are quite a few chart libraries out there that are easy to use and provide good features. But if you find that they don't meet your specific needs, then you should give D3 a try. If you want to use advanced graphics and animation in your visualization, then D3 has you covered. When other chart libraries do not meet specific customization needs, you can use D3 to build from the ground up. And when you want to use specific data formats, then D3 can handle different data formats like array, CSV, TSV, JSON, XML. So these are the main benefits of using D3. Now, the main disadvantage of D3 is that it has a little bit of a steep learning curve. You need to sort of get your head around things like binding data to DOM elements and understanding how to plot things on the SVG canvas, like drawing shapes and lines, and also mapping data to the SVG canvas. There are sort of scaling functions that are a little bit tricky at first to understand. So in this video, you're going to be learning how to install and use a D3 in React.js. You're going to learn how to set up your data in React.js, and you're going to be using some of the D3 scaling functions for drawing charts. The main ones we're going to be dealing with is scale point and scale linear. Now, these functions are very crucial when you're plotting line charts and bar charts. So these functions allow you to map your data onto the SVG canvas, and it sort of returns a coordinate for each point. So you're going to learn how to use these functions and also learn how to test these functions. And then you're going to learn how to use SVG draw functions to draw a line chart, and also learn how to draw labeled X and Y axes. So this is what we're going to be building. It's got these labeled X-axis and Y-axis, and when there's a button that you click on, it will create a new data for your chart, and it renders the it will update the chart with the new data, and it's also responsive as well. So if you like these type of videos, please subscribe to my channel, and let's get started. Okay, I'm in my VS Code, and I've already run npx create react app, and as you can see, I've got all the standard files set up. We've got the app.css, app.js, index.js, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to first go into the app.js and do some cleanup. So I'm going to just delete everything in between the header tag. Okay, so I've got some nice space there, and I'm also going to go up and just under the function app, I'm going to put some space there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste some instructions or some steps that I'm going to go through for this tutorial. So the first step is we're going to set up some initial data and some settings. Okay, so this is going to be an array of data and some things like width and height of the chart and things like that. Okay, step 2 is set up a random data generator function. This will create some random set of data. So we have a button, and then when we click on the button, it will create a new set of data. Then that will refresh the chart. So this is just to simulate a real life application. Okay, step 3 is we're going to set up some functions for the scales. The way D3 works is you have some functions and you have data, and then we have an SVG. So we use the functions to map the data into coordinates of the SVG. So that's what we're going to do. So there's going to be scaling functions for the x and the y values. Okay, step 4, we're going to set up some functions to draw the curve. Then we're going to actually draw the curve in step 5. And then we're going to set up some functions to draw the x and y axis. Now, the x and y axis is different from the curve itself. So the curve represents the data values. And the x and y axis, is for reference of, what is x and the y values. So we're going to have some functions to set up that. Then we're going to actually draw the x and y axis. So let's set up the data values, the initial data values. Okay, so what we're going to have is we're going to have an array of data. So we're just going to call it initialized data, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 objects, and each is an array of objects. So array of 5 objects. So and each object has a name and a value item. Okay, so as you can see here, so this can be some sort of expenses data or something like that. Okay, so you'll have the name like car expenses, and the value will be $10 or whatever. Okay, so that's our initial data. Okay, then we're gonna also have some data to set up the chart and things like that. So there will be things like the height. So we've got a constant height. We're gonna set it as 500. And sorry, the width is going to be 500. We're going to have a constant for height, 150, and we're going to have some padding, and then we're going to also have a maximum value. So we're not going to have like infinite values, because then it'll be more complicated. So we're just going to sort of hard code a maximum value in for the time being for this example. So that's the initial data, and the array of data, and the settings for the chart dimensions. The next thing we need to do is we need to set the state with our data. Okay, so it's going to be a constant, and we're going to say square brackets, and it's going to be, we're going to call it chart data, and we need a comma there, and we're going to have a set chart data too, set chart data. Okay, then that's going to equal, so we're going to call the use state hook, and we're going to initialize it with initial data. Okay, remember initial data was the data that we set up here earlier. Okay, so that's done. So now I'm going to go to the JSX part, and I'm going to copy a snippet of SVG code here, and we're going to use that to, well, that's going to be for the canvas for the SVG. This is where we're going to be drawing the SVG, the line. So as you can see here, it's got two parts. We've got the SVG wrapper, okay. So and then we go inside the SVG wrapper, we've got the path. Okay, so the SVG wrapper has got it's got an ID of we call it a chart, and it's got a viewbox attribute, which is set to 0, 0, 500, and 150. Basically, that means that's the canvas area for our chart. So it's going to be 500 by 150. So 500 being the width and 150 being the height. Okay, so in the path element, I've got a D attribute here. Okay, the D attribute will contain data to draw the line. Okay, so we're going to inject the data in there from a function. Okay, so and then we got the fill attribute as none. We've got the stroke as white and the stroke width as 5. Okay. Now going back to the D attribute, I can test out this SVG path by manually putting in some commands to draw a line. Okay, so there are specific commands that you can use to draw lines. So two of the basic ones are a capital M and capital L. Okay, so I'm going to use the capital M and capital L to draw a line now. So the capital M means move, and then you give it a coordinates. So it'll be in this format. It'll be the first coordinate will be 50 across and comma 50 down. Okay, so this this is one command, m50, 50. So that means move to the coordinates 50, 50 on the canvas. Okay, then you put a space after that. Then we use the L command, which is draw a line. Okay, so if I say L to 100, comma 150. Okay, so this means draw a line to 100 across and 150 down from 50, 50. Okay, so if I save this and go to the browser, okay, as you can see, we got a line. So so you can use these two commands to draw things with the path command. Okay, so we can also just before the path, I can just put in a rectangle. So it'll be RECT, not rectangle. Okay, and this tag will allow you to draw rectangles. Okay, so if I say width equals to 500, which is the width of it's got to be in quotes. So width 500 and height equals to 150. So this will draw a rectangle, and we can say fill equals blue or something like that. Okay, so if I save that and go to the browser, okay, so now as you can see, it's drawn a rectangle, and this is our actual canvas area, and we also got a line there. Okay, so now that we know this works, so I'm going to delete the rectangle and the path so that we can carry on. Okay, next I'm going to add in a button, and when you click on the button, it's going to generate a new set of data which is going to update our chart. So what it's going to do is we're going to have a function linked to it. So when you click on it, it will create some random numbers for our chart data. Okay, so what I'm going to do is first I'm going to put in a p tag just under the SVG element. Okay, and then within the p tag I'm going to have a button. Okay, and the button will be of type button, and also we're going to have a on-click handler. So it's going to be on-click, and it's equal to, and we're going to say curly brackets. Okay, now what we're going to have is we're going to have a callback function. It's going to be an arrow function. Okay, and this is going to set the state. All right, and this is going to be a little bit of a trick here. So we're going to be set the chart data. Okay, and then with a function. Okay, so the function is going to return the new data. So the new function is going to be called new data. Okay, and we need to execute that as well. So it's going to be new data, open, close, round brackets. Okay, so what this will do is when you click on it, it will set chart data with this what's going to be returned from this function called new data. So we need to create this function called new data. So that's what we're going to do next. But before we do that, we also need to do one thing. So within the button, we're going to have some text. Let's just say chart data. Okay, and we'll just say. So what we're going to do is we're going to echo out the new data. So we're going to have curly brackets, and we're going to echo out our chart data object. Okay, so the array of data. Okay, so the way we do that is we use JSON function dot stringify. Okay, and we're going to feed in the chart data. Okay, so what this will do is it will just echo out, you know, chart data is this, so whatever the new data is. Okay, so that's that function sorted out. Okay, so now I'll go back to the top, and I'm going to add the new data function. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the top, so under here, section 2. So for this a new data function, what we're going to do is we're going to map through our chart data, and then we're going to look at the D value, and then replace the D value with a random number between the max value, which is 20. So so in effect, when you map through it, it will return an array. So it will return a new array. So we're going to assign that to new data. So the way we're going to write is we're going to say constant, and we're going to say new data equals, and it's going to be an arrow function, and then we're going to have it's going to return chart data, okay, dot map, okay, and so basically we're going to map through our chart data, okay, which is going to return a new data array, okay. So within the map, we're gonna have a callback function, and so it's going to be a function, and it's going to have a parameter d, and should be parameter d, okay, and then open close curly brackets, okay, and then we're gonna look at the d element item, and we're going to inspect the value, okay. So this is the value that we're going to be changing. So this value is going to equal, we're going to have a math function, okay, and it's going to be math.floor. What this does is it makes sure that we're returning an integer, okay, and within that map function we're going to have another math function, okay, and this time it's going to be dot random, okay. So and this random function is going to return basically as a number between 0 and 1, okay, and this is some mathematical calculation that it does, okay. So then you times that by the max value, okay. Remember the max value is 20 if you look at the top there, okay, so it's 20 there, okay. So this makes sure that we're returning a value between 0 and the max value. That's inclusive of 0. So we need to add 1 there to make sure it's between 1 and 20, okay. So this whole part will generate the number for the well, generate a new number for the value, okay. So then you need to return the item, okay. So this it looks a bit complicated, and we don't really need to generate random numbers, but for our example, that's why we're doing it. So in a real example, you just do a data fetch from from a REST call or something like that. So this is just a one-off. So if you want to generate numbers, you do it this way. So if I save that and look in our browser, okay, so we've got new data is not defined. Okay, let's go back. I think it's probably a spelling mistake. Okay, so we've got constant new data. I think it's, yeah, because we've said it was new capital D data. So I just made that capital D. Okay, and save that, and then go back. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got we click on it, we get these new numbers. So so if you look carefully, you've got car value 7. I'll click on it again, car value becomes 2, 11, and 20. So it's generating the numbers. Okay. Next, I want to just tidy up the styling a little bit at this point. Okay, so go back, and I'm going to go to the app.css, and I'm going to go to the end and add button styling. Okay, so button, and open curly brackets, and we're just going to give it a bigger font size. So we're going to give it, say, 2 rem. Okay, and then also we're going to give it some width. Let's say 40%. We just want to make it look quite big. Okay, padding to Aria. Okay, so if I save that, and also I'm gonna do some styling on the app header, which is the actual wrapper that we wrapped our we're wrapping our chart around the SVG. So that's the app header. Okay, so I'm just gonna add some gradient background to it. So I'm gonna say background image, and we're gonna say linear gradient, and we're just gonna say black, comma red. Okay, and also I'm gonna we got that align items center, so I'm just going to do a stretch there so that it's going to look better. Okay, so if I just save that and go to the browser, okay, just do a refresh. I think there's yeah, so after refresh you got to refresh it, otherwise you get that funny error message. Okay, so so now the chart is looking better. Okay, and you see that the numbers are changing. So we're creating new random numbers for each of the values. Now the name actually stays the same for all of them. So as I click through, you can see the numbers changing. So that's what that function does. So it's a bit complicated, but you know, you only need to use it if you're gonna if you need the need for random numbers. So for testing purposes, it's really ideal. Okay, so now we come to step 3, which is setting up our scales. Okay, now scales are the functions that we use to map our data onto the SVG canvas. Okay, so it's basically a lot of calculations on how to represent the data onto the physical size of the SVG canvas, or the chart area. Okay, so it's like a little sort of, you know, planning out before you actually draw things. So for all charts you need the scales before you draw it. So so you'll have scales for the x and the y axis. Okay, so so you're going to use that to actually draw the line and draw the axis, and or x and y axis as well. Okay, so one thing that we need to remember is that you know, we want to run these functions you know, in a use effect hook. So we only want to run it when the data changes. Okay, so we're going to have a use effect hook. So so it's going to be use effect. Okay, and open, close, round brackets. Okay, and it's going to have a callback. Oops. And the call, and it's also going to have a dependency, which is so it's going to be an array, and it's going to be dependent on the chart data. Okay, so this will be our use effect. So in the callback, we're just going to make some space there. Okay, so first we're going to define the x scales. So it's going to be x scales goes here, and then we're going to have y scales. Okay, so first we're going to do the x scales. Okay, so okay, before we continue, as we're going to be using the D3 function from now on, we need to install D3. So what we can do first is to go to the top, and we can do an import, and we do star as D3 from inverted commas, and it's D3. Okay, so now we haven't installed it yet, so we just added the import command. So so we need to go to the terminal, say new terminal, and on the right hand side you should see node there. So you click on the node, because this is the actual node server that we're running at the moment. So we need to Control-C out of that, and then terminate job, yes. Okay, now we're going to do npm install D3. Okay, and this should install it. Then after it's installed, then we can run the server again. Okay, now it's installed. So we do npm run start, and this should start the server again. So now the server's running, so we go to the server. So just do a refresh to make sure. Okay, there's no errors. I just inspect in console log. Yep, there's no errors there. Okay, so it's installed the D3 library. Okay, so we can just close that window. Okay, the terminal window. Okay, so now we got so we imported all the D3 modules, so we can use the D3 scale functions now. So I'll go back to my scales. Now we got D3 installed properly. We can continue. Now what I'm going to do is I'm gonna copy and paste this, or cut and paste this inside here now, because we're going to be continuing all the steps from here. So I'm just going to paste that in there. Just tidied that up a little bit. Tab it out. Okay, so let me just put that at the top. Okay, so we're on step 3 now. Okay, so we're going to do the X scales and then the Y scales. Okay, then we go to step 4. Okay, let's start off with the X scales. Okay, so I'm going to do constant, and we're going to say X scale with a capital S is equal to, and we're going to say D3 dot, and it's going to be scale. Right now, there are different types of scaling functions. When you're dealing with numbers, you use a scale linear. Okay, and if you're this will be to do with anything to do with numbers. In our case, X scale has, if I go to the data part, data set, we've got the name values as X. So it'll be car, food, telephone, electricity, and the values are 10, 3. So the X values are more things rather than numbers, and the values are numbers. So the names, as you can see, they're strings, and values are actual numbers. Okay, so that's something important to remember. So when you're creating these scales, depending on if it's a number or is it some sort of string value, then you have to choose appropriately. So in our case, it's a set of things. So we have to choose something called scale point. Okay, so when you're dealing with sort of strings and things, words, so you have to select scale point. Okay, so it's open close round brackets. Okay, then it's then we do a dot domain. Okay, and this will accept our data set for that for the X values. So we can manually put in, like, car, comma, food, etc., etc. Okay, but a shorter way to do is, we can just map through the data set. So I can just do chart data dot map and open close round brackets, and then I'll just do an arrow function. Oops, arrow, and then and that will accept a D value, and so I just do D dot name. So basically, it's mapping through, and it's looking through each object, and for each item it's returning the name. So this will return an array of items for the X, like I manually typed it in. Okay, so I'm just going to tidy this up. I'm just going to make it look. After this, I'm going to do dot range. Okay, and so for the range, we're going to have the coordinate on the actual SVG canvas. So to map from these values onto our canvas, so we would need the range where of the X axis. So usually, you will start from 0. So it'll be it will take 2 values. So it'll be an array of start, comma, end, or it could be the width, or it's more like the width. Okay, so it'll be 0 and in our case the width is something like 500, so it'll be 0 to 500. But we also got the padding to consider as well. So our start will be something like 0 plus padding. Okay, and then the width would be, so I just put that in brackets. Okay, so and the width would be width minus padding. Okay, so this will identify the range where it's basically the coordinates that we will be dealing with on the x-axis. So it will start from 0 plus the padding to the width minus the padding. So basically it's mapping the data onto the SVG canvas, as I said earlier. So now that we got the X scale set up, we can test this. And if I do a console .log, and well, I want to find out, I'm going to put in the first, I want to test the first and the last item on the x-axis. So I'm going to say the car and the cinema. Okay, so what this will return is it should return the coordinates for the x and the y for car and cinema. So just do inverted commas, start, end, okay, then do a comma, then I'm going to call the function x scale, and I'm going to call it with car. Okay, so remember where I spelled it car with a capital C. So do a comma. Now I want to also console.log out the ending value as well. So I'm going to do scale, oops, capital S, and I'm going to inverted commas, and it's going to be cinema. Okay, so now if I go to the browser, so start, end, 20 and 40. Okay, so the starting value is 20 for car and ending value is for 80. Okay, so it's coming up with the values. So if I go back, so we got 20 because 0 plus padding, which is 20 max. Oh, sorry, 20 is, the padding is 20. So it's doing the calculations right. Okay, so it's adding it and minusing 20 from 500. So that is the scaling function. So now you know how to test it out. Okay, now we're going to go to the Y scales. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit different for this. So I'm going to do console constant and Y scale, and it's going to equal, it's going to be D3. Okay, and remember the Y scale is all numerical values. So we've got 10, 3, blah blah blah. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to select scale linear. Okay, so open close brackets. Okay, then it's dot domain. Okay, and the domain is gonna have a starting value and start comma end. Okay, now this is going to be a little bit different because the start value is going to be 0. Okay, and the end value is going to be the maximum value. So we're looking at the data set here. So the minimum value is 0, but the maximum value will be the highest value here. So the highest value is 10. So what we need to do is we need to do another so what we need to do here is we need to dynamically look through that list and then find out what is the max value, because the max value can change. So there is a function to do that. So it goes like D3 and it's dot max and open close brackets. Okay, so within there we're gonna first parameter is going to be chart data. Okay, so we're putting in the chart data, the array of our data set, and then in the second parameter it's going to be a callback function which returns the value. Okay, so it's going to look through this and it's going to look at the d values. So the callback function is just function, and it's going to be it's going to accept a d value, and it's open close brackets. Okay, so I'm just going to put this on a different line. Okay, so in that callback function, so it's going to have a return value, which is going to be return dot d dot value. Okay, so all this is doing is it's looking through all of them and then returning the highest value. Okay, it's like a sort of a filter of an array filter in D3. Okay, so that's what it's doing. So now we need to also specify the range. So how is it going to be mapped onto our canvas? Okay, so this is going to be range, open close brackets. Okay, and then we're going to have it's going to be an array, and as before we're going to have a start and an end. Okay, so the start is going to be it's not going to be 0, but it's going to be reverse for height. Okay, so you're mapping so you're going to be mapping the 0 to the height of the canvas. Okay, so or the chart area. We're going to plot the chart. Okay, so this is a little bit weird to understand, but what you need to do is so we're gonna start off with a start, and then we're gonna have an end. Okay, so the start is going to be the height minus the padding. Okay, so we just delete that and just put height minus padding. Okay, just put that in brackets. Okay, and then in the end, it's going to delete that. We're going to say it's going to be 0 plus the padding. So just put it in brackets. So this is it's like the range is similar to x value, but it's just sort of it's reversed. It's going from the highest value to the lowest value, and this is because of the coordinate system in SVG, because 0 would start from the highest value on the y-axis, so that's why it's like that. So it's a little bit funny to get your head around, but that's something to be aware of. So I'm going to do a console.log for this as well. So I'm going to just copy that and then just paste it here. Okay, so, and I'm just going to the start and the end. So I'm just going to change that to Y scale and Y scale. Okay, and instead of the strings, we're going to put in values. So if I say 10 and say 1, okay, so or just put 0. Okay, so it's going to map the start and end according to that. Okay, so I'll save that, go just refresh, inspect, go to console. Okay, so start end. So the second value it starts from 10 and ends at 130. Okay, so that's the start and end for the second one. So we got 2 values there. So so I should have put in a clearer message there to identify the second one. But I think I've also got it the other way around. So the start value for the y value should be 130 and end value should be 20 really. So the end value will be the the highest value, and 132 will be the lowest value, 0. So that's something to note. Okay, so I'm going to go back, and I just turn this, cut and paste it the other way around so that it makes more sense. Okay, so all I did is when you're testing it, so it just makes it clearer. Okay, so these are producing the values that we want. So now we're going to go to how to draw the function. So here I'm going to use the drawing functions of D3. So first I'm going to do a constant, and it's going to be I'm going to call it line, and it's equal to, and it's going to be a D3 function. Okay, and it's going to be called line, right? Open close brackets, and it's going to be dot x, right? So basically we want to find the x value and the y value for each point. So in the data, so we've got 5 items. So for each of these, we want to find the x and the y value. Okay, that's what we're going to be doing. And what this does is it produces a set of drawing instructions for our line. So it will look at each point, and it will construct a set of instructions to draw SVG. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. Okay, so I do dot x, and in the x value, we're going to be returning the name of the item. So it's going to be an arrow function, and it's going to return x scale, right? And it's going to be putting in d dot name. So basically, remember, we're looking at this is going to return the x coordinate of that value. So that's what we're doing here. So just make that put it on the second line. Okay, so this x is a method within line. So it's a method of the line component in D3. Okay, then there's also a dot y method. Okay, open close brackets, and this will also be a arrow function is equal to, okay, arrow function, and then this is gonna do the same thing for the, so it's gonna get the y value coordinates. So we're gonna use the y scale for this. So it's gonna return y scale. Okay, and we're gonna return the d dot name. Okay, so I've got the d part here. So the parameter for this callback function is d, and also this parameter is d as well. So you're looking through each data item, and then it's gonna return the coordinate for the d name, and the d. Oops, I got that wrong as well. So that should be the value, d value. Okay, so the for the x scale is the d name. So I'm doing putting it through x scale, and I'm returning the value for the d name, and in the y scale I'm returning the value for the d value. So that's how it should look at the end. Okay, so that goes into that. Now we can test this out as well. Okay, so I'm going to do a console.log. And we're going to say coordinates for car. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to just put in the coordinates for our chart data. So just going to say chart draw commands. Okay, so and put a comment there, and then I'm going to say line and chart data. Okay, so this should run this, and it should give you some commands. Okay, so and we can go through that. Let me just see. Do a refresh in the browser. Okay, so I'm in the console. So as you can see here, I've got chart draw commands, right? And it's got these instructions. Remember, in the beginning I went through how to draw SVG. So basically, this is what it's doing here. So it's outputting these commands. So if I copy just the command part, from everything from M to, and do a copy, and I go back to the code, and remember in the JSX part we got the path, and then we got the D value. So in between the inverted commas, I can just paste that what's outputted. Okay, so and if I save that and then go back, okay, so it draws that line. So that's what that function was doing. So that now we know that that is producing the correct data. I mean, if we go back, so the car value was 10, and the second value was 3, and telephone was 9, and electricity was 7, and so it's if you look at the data here, and it's consistent. So if I go back, right, so we know that's working. So I'm just going to delete that part, so we know that's working, and save that. Okay, so we know the draw line function works. Now that we know we can generate code to draw our line, we need to inject those commands into the D attribute of the path. Okay, so in order to do that, we need to get hold of the DOM element. So to get hold of DOM element, you need to use ref in React. So I'm going to go to the top and import use ref. So just do a comma after use state and say use ref. Okay, then I'm gonna create a constant, and I'm gonna call it SVG ref, which is gonna equal use ref. Okay, then once we've done that, we can start to go to step 5, which is draw the line. So to draw the line, we're going to first do D3 dot select. Okay, and now we've used SVG, which will get SVG ref, which will get hold of the DOM element for SVG, and then we're going to do dot current. Okay, so that this will get the target object. Okay, then we need to do another select. So it'll be a dot select, and then we're gonna look for the path. Okay, so the path element. Okay, so this will select the SVG, then select the path, then so you can target the particular attributes with dot attrib. Okay, and so we're gonna target the D value, and then we're gonna say comma, and Okay, the thing about in D3, you can either specify the attributes manually, put in the values like in quotes, or you can put a string or a number, or you can feed it a function. Okay, so we're gonna feed it a function. So I'm gonna create an arrow function, and it's gonna have an attribute called value. Okay, and the value is going to be and we're gonna return the line function with the data as chart data. Okay, so this will return the set of code which is going to be using here. So so we're going to set the attribute value with what's returned from this function. Okay, so so let me just clean this up a bit. Okay, so then we can also set other attributes. So I'm gonna set the fill color. So attribute, and it's gonna be, say, okay, so it's quotes, fill, comma, and we're not gonna have a fill color, so we're just gonna say none. Otherwise, it will default by black. Okay, so and then we're gonna have a stroke color, oops, attribute, and we're gonna set the stroke color, so stroke, and we're gonna say white. Okay, so if I save that and go, okay, now do a refresh. No, it hasn't come up. Okay, what's happened is we haven't put in the SVG use ref. So we need to go to the SVG JSX part, and we say ref equals SVG ref. Okay, so I'll save that, and then that should. Okay, so there you go. So now it's generating the code. Now it's generating straight lines. Okay, so if I click on the refresh button, and it's changing the data as well. So that's good. Okay, so now I'm going to go back. Now, what we can do is we can give a curvature to the line, and the way to do that is we need to go back to the line drawing function. Okay, so it was this one. Okay, so so after the x and the after the y value, we're going to add another function and it's called curve. And what this does is you can specify different types of curvature to the line. Okay, so I'm gonna so in D3 the different types are you can do D3 dot curve, and it will sort of give you a you can see all the list of curves that they have there. So we're going to select monotone. It's going to be monotone X. Okay, so we're choosing this curve. Okay, now if I save that and check, there you go. All right, that's nice. That's giving it a curvature. It's better than the rough, you know, sharp edges. So that's how you do a curvature to it. Okay. Okay, now we're going to add the x and y axis. So so to set up the x and y axis, I'm going to do a constant here, and I'm going to call it x axis is equal to, and it's going to be d3 dot axis, and the x-axis is going to be, we're going to have an x-axis bottom. Okay, and so basically you're going to have it top or bottom. the x, and the y can be left or right. So and this will take the x scale value. Okay, so and then we also have another constant, and it's going to be y-axis, and it's going to equal d3 dot axis, and this one's going to be axis left. Okay, so and it's going to also take the y scale. Okay, so this will output some SVG code to render the x-axis, and this will generate some code for the y-axis. Now we need to actually draw or render the elements. Okay, so to draw our x-axis first, I'm going to do a D3, and then I'm going to do a select, and I'm going to select the DOM object, which is the SVG ref, and I'm going to say to get the current object, do dot current. Okay, and then I'm going to do I'm going to append a sort of a wrapper in SVG. So I'm going to say append a G element. Okay, and then I'm going to do a dot. Then I'm going to move. I'm going to give it some position. So because we got some padding and stuff, so we need to sort of do a little bit of maths here. So I'm going to first do a transform. So I'm going to be attrib, and I'm going to do a transform, and then I'm going to do a translate. Now I'm going to be using some variables here, so I can't use the single quotes. I'm going to use the backticks. Okay, so please remember, I'm using single quotes here, and this is a backtick. Okay, so there's a difference because in backticks you can put in variables. Okay, so if you don't specify the backticks, this is not going to work. Okay, so it's going to be translate, and I'm going to have a 0, comma, and then I'm going to have a $, and open, close curly brackets, and this is where I'm going to use the height minus padding. Okay, so this should position x-axis, and also now also I'm going to give it. I'm just going to clean this up a bit. I'm just going to do tab, have it there, and that one as well. So I've appended a G element, and then I positioned it. Okay, and now I'm also going to give it an ID, and I'm going to call it it's attrib ID, comma, and I'm going to call it x-axis. Okay, so then I'm going to do a dot, and I'm going to do a call. Now this is the bit where it will actually draw our axis. So I'm just going to do x-axis. Okay, so we're just calling that function that we declared here, x-axis. So we're calling that here, and this will draw it. So I do a save, go to the browser, there you go. Okay, so I just do a refresh just in case. Okay, so what it's doing is it's drawing the x-axis. Now we need to do the y-axis. Now also, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that axis before I redraw it again. So I'm going to do D3 dot select, and I'm going to select the element with ID x-axis. Okay, remember we've given an ID here, so we need to specify the exact name that we're given here, x-axis. Alright, so and then just do remove, open close brackets. Okay, so that will remove it. So if I go to refresh just in case. Okay, now okay, so now going to inspect console elements, Okay, so if I click on the button, so it's only got one element there, so it's not adding extra ones. Okay, so we need to do the same thing for the y-axis now. So go back, and I can just copy this, and then just change bits. Okay, so instead of remove x-axis, I'm going to remove y-axis, and in the attribute transform, this is going to be a little bit different here. So so we just need to add so y position, we're going to be we're going to start from not 0, but we're going to start from, well, we're going to position it padding. So we're going to go padding across. So the x-axis is going to be a little bit from the 0, so we're just going to include the padding. So so we just do $, and in quote in curly brackets we're going to do padding, and the y value will be just 0. Okay. And then we're going to call that y-axis, and we're going to call and in the call function we're going to call the y-axis. So that's the function that will render an axis on the left side, the y-axis on the left side. So that's what the call will do. Okay, so if I save that, do a refresh. Okay, so just make sure you do a refresh. So now I've got the x-axis and the y-axis, and it's nicely rendered. Okay, so if I update the data, it will keep updating. Okay, so I can just tidy that up. If I go back and just for the button, I'll just remove that now. I'll just say click to refresh data. Okay, now if I go back, and so refresh. There you go. It's refreshing the data, and everything's rendered correctly. Okay, so if I minimize it, and it's still responsive, as you can see here. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you like this type of videos, please subscribe to my channel, and see you in the next video. Thank you.